ago, or actually a few years ago, about this symposium and the importance and the relevance to the way that academic medicine industry play and interplay the decrease in budget that NIH has, as well as the variety of different federal agencies. Academia turns more and more to industry for funding research and providing an avenue for different dialogue, clinical trials, and whatnot. And so our hope today is to provide a venue for a formal discussion by many people who are actively involved in this field. And so to provide the first introductory set of comments, Vice Chancellor for Health Affairs, Dr. David Bailey, will be providing some comments.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta, and good morning to all of you. Well, on behalf of the University of California, Irvine Health Affairs, it's indeed my pleasure to welcome all of you to this symposium on ethics, the role of industry and academia, jointly sponsored, as you've heard, by the UC Irvine Department of Orthopedic Surgery and the Association for Ethics in Spine Surgery. I'm David Bailey, the Vice Chancellor for Health Affairs and Dean of the School of Medicine. Well, back in the dark ages, when I was a medical student, and they did have medical schools back in those days, students were really primarily focused as much on, learning as much as possible about the practical and technical aspects of medicine and issues surrounding the economics of medicine, the rationing of health care, the prolongation of life, advanced directives, end-of-life care, rationing of transplantation, conflict of interest, scientific misconduct, and research impropriety were largely unknown. And if they occurred at all, they were only whispered in the back hallways as a bizarre and once in a blue moon event. Well, nowadays, it's really hard to go through even 1 week without hearing at least mention of one or more of these issues, and often they're issues that cluster together. Furthermore, the lay public these days is very savvy in these matters, and in many instances, they have become the watchdog of ethics. And personally, I think this is very, very good, since it's the public that we as physicians, scientists, academics, and industrial leaders serve. Today's symposium will focus mostly on the interface between academia and industry, an interface which might have been born, I don't know it for sure, but might have been born on December 12, 1980. I don't know if you remember what happened then, but that was the date that the Bayh-Dole Act was passed. Now, this act allowed universities and principal investigators receiving federal research support for studies to retain intellectual property rights instead of the federal government, thereby opening up the doors to more aggressive development of devices, medications, and treatments by universities and faculty, who quickly realized that the most rapid way to development is through the private sector, namely through industry and business. This act very positively stimulated the more rapid development of technology based upon university discoveries. However, it was not long before financial incentives, translated as patent rights and royalties, were realized for greasing the tracks for such development. And with that, the seeds for conflict of interest were planted, at least in my view. These incentives, in turn, induced academics to rush to establish priority by publishing as quickly as possible in the scientific literature, but sometimes all too quickly. We're all aware of instances of plagiarism, falsification of data, and fabrication of data that constitutes scientific misconduct. In fact, ethical concerns, conflicts of interest, and scientific misconduct have become so commonplace that there has been a proliferation of committees, commissions, citizen groups, and policies to safeguard against them. As we speak, the University of California has just promulgated a system-wide vendor policy stringently regulating the interactions between vendors of medical and pharmaceutical supplies in our medical centers and medical schools. It appears that the policy will be even more be applied even more broadly to the general campus in the near future. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not laying the blame for conflict of interest, scientific misconduct, and ethical violations on the Bayh-Dole Act. Humankind being what it is, these issues would have been inevitable at some point in time. The act was just one of several stimulants for making faculty more entrepreneurial and industry more aggressive. Well, it's probably time for me to stop preaching and to let the symposium begin. My remarks were merely supposed to be a welcome, and I hope you take them as such. So, on behalf of the University of California Irvine Health Affairs, I want to welcome you to the symposium today. I think it will be a stellar and hopefully provocative event. Thank you.
My next role is to provide you a little introduction about Dr. Charles Rosen. And I want to preface it by my role. I started at the University of California in 1999, and I have been, as a way of disclosure, I'm an NIH-funded investigator. I've never been a consultant for anybody. So in some ways, it means I'm also a bit naive. I was a bit naive to the concepts of what this whole symposium is about. And around about 2005, when there were medical devices, and particularly in orthopedic surgery, started to have a much greater role in how, and industry started to have a much greater role in how orthopedic surgery actually was being conducted at different hospitals. There were a variety of different concepts, such as gain sharing, that the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgery was talking about, ideas about how to change the ways orthopedic surgery was done. And right around that time, a spine surgeon started to ask, how are these decisions being made? How is this dialogue happening? And who is making those decisions? And this spine surgeon, often when he met and spoke with people at NASS, or when he met and spoke with people at which is the North American Spine Association, or spoke to folks at the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgery, people looked at him like he was crazy. And why are you asking us these questions? And bit by bit, as he started looking into these questions more and more, he talked to me, and I was actually flabbergasted as well, because the truth was, I'm an academic orthopedic surgeon, and he was asking questions that I felt a bit uncomfortable with. And he asked, why are you uncomfortable? These are you are making decisions. Why do you not know who your colleagues and mentors are that are making these decisions? If they do have, do you not realize that they're going to have a role, that if they are funded by industry, that there is an opportunity for bias? And back in 2005 and 2006, the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgery, as did most of mainstream academics, were horrified that they were being questioned by it. And bit by bit, as most people who are ahead of their times, they get marginalized unless they truly believe and are passionate in what they say, and truthfully, if they're right. And over the course of time, and to the point where now in 2008, where the University of California has adopted these rules, there's a new act. One of the things I want to at least begin this conference by acknowledging that much of those changes have been spearheaded quietly initially, but very, very voraciously by Charles Rosen. And so with that introduction, I'd like to introduce you Dr. Rosen, clinical professor in the Department of Orthopedic Surgery and president of the American Association for Ethical Spine Surgery.
Thank you, Ranjan, for those kind remarks. I hadn't thought of myself in those terms, but and thank you, Dean Bailey, for your remarks, and thank you for your unwavering support of this symposium. Though you assumed your position just last spring, you've shown no hesitation to scrutinize the politically difficult issue of industrial relations and academia. And I think that probably going along with the status quo would have been much easier for you. But I think you've shown your true colors, and I speak for the many involved in this when I say thank you, and it's what we need now. Thank you to the participants who have worked so thoughtfully to present the issues, which they will shortly, that I predict most of the audience will have really little idea ever existed, yet so greatly affect their daily health care. I wish to also let it be known that some of the participants had voluntarily traveled from afar on their own dime to be here for just this morning, and it's a tribute to their dedication to addressing the issue at hand, and I'd like to mention those individuals. There's Peter Wynn, Assistant U.S. Attorney, Department of Justice, who's flown in from Washington State, and Chad Phipps, who's Vice President and General Counsel for Zimmer, who's flown in from Indiana, and we have Jack Mitchell, who's Chief of Investigations for the Senate Subcommittee on Aging under Senator Cole, who's flown in from Washington, D.C. Senator Cole is sponsoring the Sunshine Act. And I particularly thank Chad for coming, since he's sort of coming a little bit into the lion's den here, and I admire that greatly, being able to do that. I am president of the Association for Ethics in Spine Surgery, a co-sponsor of this symposium, and am addressing this audience in that capacity. The UCI Department of Orthopedic Surgery, as you heard, is the co-sponsor as well. And I can tell you sincerely that without the support of Chairman Ranjan Gupta to get this done, none of this would have been possible. And I think I want to earnestly thank him for this, as well as for being the ethical, upstanding, and unafraid individual that he is to take this task on. And I can tell you that it does take courage to do this, and he has shown that, and I thank him. A final word about what will be the concrete result of this symposium, namely with all the various stakeholders here today, we plan on having a set of rules forged by consensus that will grow out of this and be an action plan for charting a new course in medicine. We'll